Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq issues orders to form a ministerial committee to assess the damages caused to citizens' homes and properties in the governorate that took the brunt of the tropical storm Shaheen. The direct impacts of the tropical condition are ended and 7 deaths are reported in the governorate of North Batna and 1 in South Batna. Various sectors in the Sultanate intensify their efforts to deal with the tropical weather condition. And the Ministry of Education suspends studies in affected governorate, and the Ministry of Labour calls upon private and public institutions to take into account conditions of workers living in areas directly affected by Shaheen. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. As part of the royal attention accorded by His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq and in pursuance of his follow-up of the tropical cyclone Shaheen and its aftermath in different parts of the Sultanate, His Majesty the Sultan issued orders to form a ministerial committee to assess the damages caused to citizens' homes and properties in the governorates that took the brunt of the tropical condition. The committee is tasked to act immediately to provide all forms of support and assistance to citizens and alleviate the impact. His Majesty the Sultan ordered to speed up operations to repair damages to the infrastructure and undertake necessary measures to restore disrupted services. Headed by the Minister of Finance, Chairman of the Financial and Economic Committee to the Council of Ministers, the Ministerial Committee will proceed to get things back to normal as soon as possible. May the Almighty Allah protect His Majesty the Sultan and grant him continued good health and long life. His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency Fumio Kishida on the occasion of him being elected as the new Prime Minister of Japan. His Excellency General Sultan bin Mohammed Al Nu'mani, Minister of the Royal Office, Deputy Chairman of the National Security Council, went on a tour today of the National Emergency Management Center, NEMC. He was accompanied by Lieutenant General Hassan bin Mohsin Al-Shiraiqi, Inspector General of Police and Customs, Chairman of the National Emergency Management Committee, and representative of the sectors of the committee. His Excellency inspected the progress of relief operations in the aftermath of tropical cyclone Shaheen. It was briefed about tasks undertaken prior to and during the landfall of the tropical cyclone in the northern governorates of the Sultanate. He also took note of the plans and procedures devised by the NEMC, the National Committee and other sectors concerned as they deal with the impacts of the climate condition. His Excellency Sayyid Badr bin Hamid Al Busaidi, Foreign Minister, received a number of phone calls from Their Highnesses and Excellencies, the Foreign Ministers of brotherly and friendly countries, where they expressed their solidarity with Sultanate to face the tropical condition Shaheen. The National Multi-Hazards and Early Warning Center announced the end of direct impact of the tropical cyclone Shaheen. Predictions charts indicate that the low-pressure system is centered southwest governorate of Al-Dhahira near the border of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is expected that the low pressure gradually dissipates scattered thunderstorms and predicted over Al-Hajar Mountains and adjoining wilayats during the afternoon. The Civil Aviation Authority, CAA, urges everyone to exercise caution, avoid risk of crossing flowing wadis and stay away from low-lying areas. The CAA valued the efforts exerted by the National Center for Emergency Management and other sectors, as well as response of citizens and residents to cyclone-related updates and warnings. The National Center for Emergency Management affirmed the death of 7 people and receiving reports of missing of others due to the tropical system in the government of North Batna. Different state sectors have intensified their efforts to deal with the impacts of tropical condition Shaheen, which affected the Sultanate. Royal Air Force of Oman conducted continuous operations for search and rescue for a number of families stranded in some areas and villages of the governorate of North and South Batna due to overflowing wadis. The rescue team at the Civil Defense and Ambulance Authority found dead the missing citizen in Wadi al-Salil in the Wilaya of Rostak. The rescue team succeeded in saving lives of 8 persons stranded in some wadis in the governorate of Dakhliya. Meanwhile, the field teams are working to restore the electricity services, open the roads in the Wilaya of Barka and Musana. The wilayas of the governorates of North Batna witnessed heavy rains accompanied by gusty winds which led some wadis to overflow and affected the public sector services in a number of villages. The rescue teams at Public Authority for Civil Defense and Ambulance were able to rescue numbers of individuals after their homes were flooded by rainwater. Meanwhile, the maritime operations at Sahar port were resumed after precautionary suspension due to the tropical condition Shaheen, the center which was crossed between the wilayas of Suwaik and Al-Musana yesterday. In the governorate of South Batna, the heavy rains accompanied by gusty winds led some wadis and their tributaries to overflow. The rains caused disruption in traffic movement on Rostak, Ibri Road and power outage in some coastal areas in the Wilaya of Barka and Al-Musana. A citizen who was missing found dead in Wadi al-Salil in the Wilaya of Rostak. In the governorate of South Batna, the heavy rains accompanied by gusty winds led some wadis and the tributaries to overflow. As a number of governorates in the Sultanate were affected by the tropical cyclone Shaheen, the Ministry of Education decided to suspend studies in all public and private schools in the governorates of North and South Batna for the coming 3 days, starting from the 5th to the 7th of the current month. The studies will resume on Sunday. The ministry also decided to suspend the studies in private and public schools in the governorates of Muscat and Dhahira tomorrow, Tuesday, the 5th of October. The studies will resume on Wednesday, the 6th of October. The Directors General of Education in the relevant governorate will announce any further updates based on the evaluation of their condition in coordination with the Central Committee for Emergency Management at the ministry. The Ministry of Labour calls upon all institutions in the public and private sectors to take into consideration the conditions of their workers living in areas directly affected by the tropical storm Shaheen and exempt them from going to their workplaces until their conditions improve. The ministry also said in a statement today that due to the exceptional weather condition Shaheen witnessed in the Sultanate and in consideration of the current situation, the employees may be allowed to work remotely to consider such period as an emergency leave while emphasizing not to hold them accountable or deduct their salaries for those who could not reach their workplaces. The main military committee for emergency management held its meeting to deal with the impacts of the tropical cyclone Shaheen on the governorates of Muscat and North and South Batna. The members of the main committee discussed during the video conferencing with military subcommittees in these governorates the operations conducted by the various divisions of Sultan Armed Forces and those being executed to serve citizens and residents in the affected governorates. Exerted efforts by concerned government bodies are going on to clear the leftover from the cyclone Shaheen on roads brought flood waters. More details in the following report.
Muscat municipality intensified its efforts in dealing with the tropical conditions that affected the Sultanate during the previous days due to the tropical cyclone Shaheen. Work on the areas affected by the heavy rains caused by the tropical situation Shaheen is going on. These work teams are exerting their efforts to clear the leftover caused by the cyclone. The work is being implemented in cooperation with a number of private sectors companies to prepare roads and streets through heavy and light equipment here in the governorate of Muscat and throughout other governorates affected by the tropical Shaheen. Municipalities' equipment also removed a large number of fallen trees on the roads today, in addition to draining large quantities of water from the homes of some citizens and the road tracks. These work teams will continue their tasks until all is cleared. As you can see, this is the remaining of the effect of Cyclone Shaheen. Work has already started since early morning, where the roads have been cleared not only here in Muscat, but throughout the country. Abdullah bin Ahmed Al-Rubi'i, Sultanate of Oman Television, Muscat.
This is the Sultanate of Oman Television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq issues orders to form a ministerial committee to assess the damages caused to citizens' homes and properties in the governorate that took the brunt of the tropical storm Shaheen. The direct impacts of the tropical condition are ended and 7 deaths are reported in the governorate of North Badna and 1 in South Badna. Various sectors in the Sultanate intensify their efforts to deal with the tropical weather condition. And the Ministry of Education suspends studies in affected governorates, and the Ministry of Labour calls upon private and public institutions to take into account conditions of workers living in areas directly affected by Shaheen. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studios and the newsroom, it's good night and stay safe.